Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining our product training webinar today to learn more about Panduit splicing solutions. This 1-hour training is brought to you by Panduit and TridentTechnology Services and will be presented today by Bob Wagner. Bob is the product line manager for fiber connectivity and pathways for Panduit's data center business unit. He has over 25 years of experience in developing and marketing high-performance interconnect systems in telecom, computing, and network infrastructure markets. Bob will tackle today the following Panduit products: the HDFlex zone-raised floor enclosure, the HD Fusion wall-mount Splice enclosure, the Opti-Core fiber optic patch cords, and the HDFlex cassettes. Welcome, Bob, and thank you again for preparing this session for our audience.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. All right, so we're going to go through 4 different products, and we'll leave some time for questions at the end. The first one we're going to talk about is our new HDFlex zone enclosure. This goes into the floors. So if you have a raised floor in your data center, this is an ideal way to add more density in an area where you can go ahead and make moves, adds, and changes. And we've added some extra features which make this a really easy product to use. So on the screen, you'll see the part number. It's our Flex-ZRFEG, and that is a gray zone enclosure. So it's a very neutral color. It also helps when you are looking into the floor. When we talk to customers, they were concerned about getting enough light down there. So the gray is a fairly light color, allows you to see better. The nice thing about this is you can hit or fit all the way up to 576 fibers or 288 LC ports, which is very, very dense for one panel in a floor. It's going to save you some money because now instead of having racks, you can put all the cabling in the floor and have easy access to it. So if you do have a raised floor, this is an ideal application, ideal product for you. It has flexibility in the fact that it has both A and a B network. If you can see the picture on the right of the screen, you've got 2 patch panels, and those are basically miniaturized versions of our HDFlex patch panels. If you've been familiar with those, it works with cassettes. And you'll notice on the right side, it's tilted. And that's the key feature of this product. Again, another one of the things we heard from our customers, it's really hard when you're into a floor, you don't have a lot of room, and we can't get at the patch panels. We can't get at both sides because, again, these are rear and front access. So now we developed it where you can use those handles, pull it up, and then you can access either side by tilting either way. We'll show a video which will really, I think, bring this home. And that's the accessibility to the connections. It's the easiest product on the market to be able to get to both sides of the patch panel so you can move, add, change, whatever you'd like to do. It's really, really simple to use. And on the right-hand side, you see a really good picture of how this fits. It goes into one square. You can add the different types of openings, but this one has got a twin door opening. You just place it open, and then you're able to access into it. And then if you look at the lower right-hand side, it shows you how you can potentially wire up the cabling. So you come in, it's got plenty of room for slack management. So it's got the nice, ability to put it in a circle so it doesn't have any tension. It comes in this case, through the bottom, and then it comes back out to the top. And then you can run it from both sides. So it's got split sides. Again, if you'd like to segregate it, you have an A side and then a B side for redundancy. And so here we see our product compared to some of our competitors' products. And again, they don't have a real clean way of segregating your redundant sides, A and B. And also you can see it tends to get very dense and very packed. and they don't have a real simple way of getting to both sides. You can see they're angled so you can get to the front, but it's really, really difficult to get to the back. So again, it's all about giving you some functionality. On top of that, we're giving you security. So there's a lockable enclosure. So if you don't want people to get in there and make moves, adds, and changes, it is an option to put a keyed door so that only people with that key can get in. And then we also offer cable storage. So a lot of storage of that cable can be in there. So you have a lot of slack loops. And again, it's designed for functionality for the user. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the video. It's just a short 1 or 2 minute video, and it'll kind of show you exactly how it's used. You see the 2 doors opening.
My name is Arnold Chinyawanji within the Fiber Product Management team, and I'm pleased to introduce to you the new Panduit Flex Zone Raised Flow Enclosure. This enclosure is an ideal solution for consolidation point or zone distribution area for data center or co-location. It saves valuable real estate in the data center by allowing cable termination below raised flow, relieves congestion in racks and cabinets. The enclosure enables the segregation of 2 sides, A and B, that allows a greater network design flexibility. The enclosure can manage and organize up to 288 fiber ports, which is 576 fibers using HDFlex cassette MPO to LC breakout. More importantly, it provides easy access to the patching field, as it allows the capability to pull and rotate patch panel for access to the cassette for smooth moves, adds, and changes.
And that tilting, he didn't show it in the video, but it tilts both ways. So he went out through the LC front side of that cassette. It tilts the other way so you can get into the MPO side as well. So you can move the cassette from either side. You can access the cabling from either side. And you know, you have a lot of room. It's well designed, and it's been very, very popular with people with raised floors. All right, so the next product we're going to talk about is the wall mount splice enclosure. So again, this is another one of our new high density enclosures. This one, instead of being in the floor, is designed to be put on the wall. And in this case, this is for splicing. So if you are running long runs of fiber, a lot of high density fiber, and you need a demarcation point where you can splice that fiber into more usable runs of maybe shorter lengths or maybe pre-terminated on one end, this is an ideal solution. It has the highest density in the market for the space it takes. It comes in 2 varieties, much like the in-floor zone. You have a option for 2 doors that open left and right, and it comes in a 3,456 fibers, or the larger 6,912 fibers. They both they come in a couple different colors. If you'd like it in white, we offer it in white. The standard is that same gray color, which is very popular. It's a very neutral color, but also again allows the you to see the product very easily. As you can see, the cabling, which is in this case has been furcated with black nylon sleeving, stands out very easily. And in the middle, you can see there are 2 sections. In this case, it's a 6912 fiber product for several different fiber trays. It uses the exact same fiber trays as all of our other HD Fusion products. And so it's very simple to use and has a ton of flexibility, which we'll see in the next slide. So the density is fantastic, but it's also very easy to install. We'll again show another video which shows you exactly all the different things that can move. But if you notice in the picture on the right, the cabling can come either in from any side, top, bottom, left, or right. And each of those panels offers a holes of different sizes, and then plastic plugs if you're not going to use those holes. So if you want to have larger fiber coming in from the upper right, like which is kind of shown, you can move the panel that has the largest holes and then unplug them with just simply pushing out the plastic containers. And that allows you to have larger fiber. If you'd like to have smaller fiber coming in, which is on the upper left-hand side, you again move the panel that you want. So the panels on the sides can move left and right. The panels on the up, top, and bottom can move around. A lot of flexibility to meet exactly what you need to run for your system. The Splice tray holder is really unique. Instead of it being mounted horizontally, we've mounted them vertically. So much like a book binder, you can thumb through and flip through the Splice. They're on a rotating pivot, so you can quickly get into wherever you want. There's plenty of room. But when then you decide to close it up, you take the tack tie strip, you hold them together, and they form a very small section. And you just remove that tack tie, just like a Velcro type strip, and it just allows you to get access to them. You can pop those trays out, and you can place them on a workbench. The workbench is a device that comes hanging onto the left door, and the video will show this very easily. You can remove that, place it down, and if you see here in the lower left-hand corner of the video, or excuse me, the picture, there's already a room to not only put the Splice tray, but the actual Fusion splicer. So it's really nice to be able to have this work area where you can do the splicing, snap up the tray, put the tray back in, make sure your fiber and your cabling is well positioned, and then you're ready to close the doors and walk away. So the other thing that is, not only are the Splice trays, you order them separately, so there you can scale as you need, buy 10 different Splice trays, or you can fill up the entire enclosure. You only have to pay for what you need today. The entire enclosure is also modular. So those holes in the sides, if you place another enclosure to the left of it, you just take those holes out and you can run fiber from the enclosure on the right to the enclosure on the right. You can go up and down, so you can scale. You can keep buying more and more enclosures, and they can all work with each other. So it's a lot of flexibility, a lot of scalability, and a lot of density. So here we'll see the video. Again, it's a short video to show you all those features.
My name is Arnold Chinyawanji within the Fiber Product Management team. And I'm pleased to introduce to you the Panduit new HD Fusion wall mount splicing solution. This enclosure belongs to a family set of solutions that is used as demarcation point in meet-me room, entrance facility, or MDA within the data centers, co-location, or hyperscale. The enclosure shall be mounted against the wall and is offered in 2 versions. It provides enough room for cable entries and cable exit, and to work inside the enclosures thanks to the backplate splicing tray support that can move right or left as needed. It has a high density that allows you to splice up to 34, 56, and 69 12 ribbon fibers, respectively, for both the small and the large version. Many splicing trays are available, and an optional storage box that will help you expand capacity as needed. Last but not least, it provides great flexibilities because the plates on the side of the enclosure are interchangeable to provide more options in terms of cable size varieties. And the working surface, it's embedded for a better user experience.
So you can see that working surface, that's where you have plenty of room to put the Splice tray and the Fusion splicer. And again, this gives you a ton of flexibility. When you notice when you took that strap off, how the Splice trays immediately kind of opened up, and it's great because you can just thumb through, get to the one you want to modify. There's 2 different types of fiber trays you can buy with it. One is for ribbon, one is for discrete fiber, and all the way up to 144 fibers per splice tray. And there's a ton of different accessories. You can buy different glands for the different types of OD fiber that you may have. And it's all on, you can find it on our website. Again, a ton of flexibility and a very high density package. Okay, we'll move on to the next product. So we've learned about a lot of enclosures. Now we're going to learn about some of the new cabling. This is active optical fiber cables, commonly referred to as AOCs. If you haven't heard of them, a lot of the people that use these sort of products are larger data centers. You have a lot of different options for cabling. Many smaller data centers are using still copper cabling, twisted pair cabling. That's great when you are running at 10 gig or below speeds. But if you're moving into, and many people are these days, into 25 gig, 100 gig, you really can't use the UTP, the twisted pair cable anymore. So the first thing you can take a look at are Twin-X copper cables, commonly referred to as DAC, and they're sold under, we sell them as well, SFP Plus for 10 gig, SFP 28 for 25 gig, QSFP Plus for 40 gig, and QSFP 28 for 100 gig. But they only go so long. About 5 meters is the maximum. So if you're going from one cabinet to the adjacent cabinet or no farther, then they're a great option. They're the least cost, most effective product you can use. However, if you have density issues, they also are the largest OD. So when you decide to switch over to fiber, the first thing most people do is you use pluggable transceivers. Those are the transceivers that come with the switch and the server. You plug those in, and then you connect our fiber patch cords, our passive fiber patch cords. However, those transceivers tend to be a little expensive. So a way to get away from that and reduce your cost by up to 30% is to buy an AOC, which is basically those pluggable transceivers, which are pre-terminated to the fiber by Panduit. And now instead of buying separate pluggable transceivers you put in first, you don't do that at all. You just take our fiber AOCs and you plug them into the switch, to another switch, or switch to a server. And what's nice about that is you're talking about a 3 millimeter diameter for that cable. So it's only slightly larger than a passive fiber, and it's 30% less. The disadvantage and why you may not want to use it is because, as we talked about, it's got that pluggable transceiver, as you can see in these pictures, already pre-terminated. You cannot separate it from the fiber. And if you go run that through your pathways, so your fiber runner trays, it's a larger than a normal LC or MPO style patch cord. So it's a little bit larger, and if it does break, then it's harder to fish out. So the AOCs, as we talked about, are offered in 10 gig, 25 gig, 40 gig, 100 gig, and in the future we'll be adding 400 gig, so it can run the fastest speeds possible. You can go switch to switch, which is normally with the QSFP format, which is the 40 gig and the 100 gig. You can go switch to server, which if you want to go at 10 gig or 25 gig, you'll use the SFP form factor. But you can also, if you have a 100 gig switch at the top of the rack, you can use a QSFP 100 gig to a 4 SFP 28 breakout. That means one switch port can go to 4 server ports, 4 different servers. So that's great port utilization. So you really get a lot of density in there as well. And the nice thing is this comes up to lengths all the way to 30 meters. And because the AOCs are pre-terminated and we know exactly how long they're going to be, we can use optics, which are perfectly suited for that 30 meters. If you buy pluggable transceivers from the switch vendor, they don't know how long you're going to run it. And it could be all the way up to 500 meters. So they have to design their pluggable transceivers to work all the way to 500 meters. That's where the savings come in. The 500 meter pluggable transceivers are very expensive as compared to the ones we use, which are designed for 30 meters and below. So that's with the savings. Very good optics, just designed for a shorter run. So our lead times are 6 weeks, so relatively short, considering that you know that's if we're out of stock. We are setting up stock today. The most common lengths are the 3, 5, 10, and 15 meters. If you place an order and say, I'm going to need more in the future, we'll be glad to stock for you, and we'll hold it close to your location. And again, you can see the different types, the SFP Plus, QSFP Plus, all the way up to the QSFP 28 breakout. Again, that's the product that goes 100 gigs to 4 servers, and that's a great way to port utilize. So it's open sourcing for all these standards. We use the same EEPROMs that everybody else uses. So whether it's a Cisco AOC or anybody else's AOCs, completely compatible with their switch and with their server. There are a few products out in the field, and I mean very, very few, where they've locked it down and they're saying, we don't want to have anybody but our brand. I'd like to say, if you're a Cisco, you're saying, I only want a Cisco AOC to be used, but there's very, very few of those. And we have a compatibility guide to kind of tell you which style you're using. And if you have any question, maybe it's a new switch we haven't tested yet, please let us know. We'll be glad to send you out samples to try it out to make sure it works. But it's 90+% of the switches and servers out there are open to be used. And here again is showing the different type of fiber we use. So OM3 for the 10, 40 gig and 25 gig. And then we move to OM4. These are all multi-mode. These are only running 30 meters at max. And then all the SFF documents. So you can feel very secure and safe and confident that we're using product. We've developed product that meets all of the industry standards. So the compatibility and the performance will be there. So we learned about some fiber optic active cables. Now we're going to look at the next generation of even smaller passive cables. And this is called CS. So everybody's familiar with LC, SC, ST types of passive fiber. The next generation is CS. And what's different about it is twice as small as an LC. And it was designed, we just learned about QSFP form factors. Those are the types of transceivers. Today, with a QSFP form factor, which can fit an MPO, 12 fiber MPO, you can only put in one duplex pair of LC. And so that's kind of a drawback. The CS, you can have 2 duplex pairs that go into that same space, which are basically doubling your density. And now I'm going to tell you that the density you get out of this is 40% better. And that's because when we look at patch panels, cassettes, etc., that's the way the numbers come out. Not only are we offering the patch, excuse me, can you go back just a second, please? Not only are we offering patch panels, patch cords, we're also offering cassettes that work with our HDFlex. And that's the same types of cassettes that are used in our in-floor zone enclosures. It comes in both single mode and multi-mode. And when you get into the different types of cassettes, you'll see just how the density improves when you use a CS. So it kind of looks a lot like an LC. It comes with a duplex and then a connector with a unitary uniboot style cable. So one cable, OD of 2 millimeters, very small, coming into the 2 connectors. So great for density. You'll notice the white pull tab. That's a firm, hard plastic pull tab. So when you're talking about high density, sometimes it's hard to get your fingers in to remove the patch cords. Not with these CS patch cords. You grab on that the pull tab, it extrudes out of the patch field. You're able to quickly pull it, and then that pulls the fiber out. So easy to use. Typical aqua if we're going with OM4 multi-mode, or blue, and that's the color of the housing. In this case, the picture is a single mode. That's the blue OS2. You see the yellow fiber coming out of it. It would be aqua colored connector with a aqua colored cable coming out of it for multi-mode. And we offer it in both, insert optimized and ultra insertion loss. You can see in your low left-hand side, 0.15 dB, or all the way even to better, 0.1 dB. And then in single mode, we just offered in the 0.25 optimized. We offered in CS to CS and CS to LC, because a lot of people have legacy LC and they want to hook it up with their CS. So when you start using cassettes, you can see in the top portion of your screen, LC for 1 RU, you can get 144 fibers. But with CS, depending on what type of cassettes you use, you can get to 192 or all the way up to 216. So about a 40% increase. And duplex ports, it's 72 versus 96 and 108. So when you use a 6-port LC duplex cassette, instead now with CS, we're able to fit in 8 ports. And that's important because more and more today's technology, switches to servers, etc., are using a 4-to-1 breakout. As we saw with the AOC, you're using 1 port on the switch to break out to 4 servers. So a 6-port doesn't work too well for the 4-to-1. If you now use an 8-port, it works even better. So that besides the density is a big advantage. Now, if you move up to our larger, and you can see that in the upper right-hand corner, our 12-port LC cassette style, we can fit in an additional, so now we're into 18 ports. So you can get 36 fibers in there. And when you use 18 ports, and then you can have 2 of those, actually 6 of those in the HDFlex 1RU enclosure, that's when you're starting to get up to the 108 ports, 216 fibers. So it really adds the density. And in the bottom section of the picture, you see all the different varieties of cassettes. We're using universal polarity, and you can see the different fiber counts you can get. So maximizes density, makes it easier to use 4-to-1 ports, breakouts. So a new generation of product, the first one in about 15 years. I think it's going to start to catch on, especially when you get into the higher data rates like 100 gig and 400 gig. And here's a really good picture of the 8-port LC. It's actually, you call it 4-port, 8 separate fibers. So you have on the far side, if you want to use a 400 gig SR8, that's the highest speed available transceiver, but it could be 100 gig. You can run an MPO from that QSFP form factor into the cassette. And then inside the cassette, we're breaking that out into, as you can see, 8 duplex, 8 duplex SCs. And if you see that red and green picture, that shows you what those look like. The red being the transmit, the green being the receive. And then you can shoot over to from those duplex CSs to, if you'd like to keep it, duplex CS again, or you can also bring it out to LCs if that's what your equipment on the other end. So again, this is going from a 400 gig switch port down to a 25 gig server port. And you can get to 4 of those server ports. You can also use it for 100 gig to 25 or 100 gig to 40 gig to 10. So again, much like all of our products, standards compliance with 400 gig media. It's very high density, low OpEx. It's the CS are only slightly more expensive than LCs, and the ability to use these products, they're smaller, but they're still well suited for your finger. So not too small that they become really hard to use, especially in high density applications. And you have that pull tab that makes it easy. Cleaning is also easy. We offer a wide variety of cleaning tools. So it's really not much harder to use than LC, but you're gaining a lot of density. And so that's the big advantage. And when we move into 400 gig applications, which I'm sure not too many of you are doing that today, but as you do that, you want to get your densities and you can maximize your floor space to have the same you're using today, but you can triple, quadruple your data rate. So it's a really nice option as you scale into those higher speeds. And here's the video. We'll show you to kind of bring all this visually together.
Panduit is pleased to introduce our new line of products based on the CS connector. These include CS fiber patch cords and CS cassettes that complement our HDFlex enclosure solution. The CS fiber patch cord, available in single mode and multi-mode, has a very low profile with a unitary cable and push-pull tab that facilitates easy moves, adds, and changes in ultra-high density installations. CS cassettes, also available in single mode and multi-mode, provide 4:1 or 8:1 breakout options for 100G, 200G, and 400G applications. The 4:1 breakout cassette has 2 MPO12 connectors on the back and 8 CS connectors on the front. This provides 2 distinct breakout channels for SR4 applications. The 8:1 breakout cassette has 1 MPO24 connector on the back and 8 CS connectors on the front for 400G SR8 applications using an MPO24 connector. Both of these cassettes provide install densities of 192 fibers per rack unit. The third cassette in our wide configuration has 3 MPO12 connectors on the back and 18 CS connectors on the front. This cassette is universally wired and is used on both ends of a cassette trunk cassette link. This cassette increases the density of HDFlex from 144 fibers using LC connectors to 216 fibers using CS connectors. These exciting new products will reduce the connectivity footprint for hyperscale, multi-tenant data centers, and large data centers. For more information on the CS connector and other Panduit products, visit panduit.com.
So you can see, again, I know a lot of you are not at 400 gig today. You may not be there tomorrow or even a couple years from now, but it shows that if you use Panduit, you're in good hands, you're future-proofed. And this next slide, I'm going to show you an actual application at a U.S. military base. They have a very large data center. They are dealing with the drone footage and the camera footage on servicemen who and women who are out in the field, and so they're kind of the eyes in the sky. So it is not only a mission critical, it's a life critical. They're relaying information to those service people to know what to do out in the field, and so they needed the highest speed data center they could get, and they also wanted an incredible life. They're asking for 15 years of future-proof life, and while we can't guarantee what'll change in electronics, we were brought in to do a test, and it was the very first test ever done at 400 gigs speeds in an actual customer's data center. We had designed the whole product to work with 25 gig, 100 gig, all the way up to 400 gig. And we kept adding channel length. This is an actual application. And we were able to get an outstanding 400 meters at 400 gig with superb bit error rates. And these were tested with lab environment test equipment, but in a real live application. These are not golden selected cables. These are just random cables in the pre-installed data center at the customer. Normally, you should only be able to get 125. That's what the standards tell us, not Panduit, but the IEEE standards, TIA standards say you should get around 125. So we were able to get more than 3x the length. We won't give you a guarantee for that length, but we were showing you that on a normal application, our signature core cable, which is our improved OM4 cable, will give you unbelievable length at a much lower price with the entire channel than if you went with single mode. So I think this shows that Panduit is really innovating, and whether you need the 400 gig or not today, it will show that we are future-proofed for every single application you're going to be needing for many, many years to come. So that concludes the presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions. And then we went through a lot of data, a lot of information. So if anybody has a question, let me know and we'll try to answer it for you.
Thank you very much, Bob. for this training session. I have a couple of questions that were raised. So I will start with the first one. What vertical is best suited for the wall mount splice enclosure?
Yeah, and the nice thing about the wall mount enclosure is it's very flexible. It doesn't have to be at any particular vertical. Like a financial company, a trading floor company may love to have this because they like the high density. Medical companies, hospitals, things like that, they may like it because it's a great consolidation point. A big buzzword in the market today is edge computing. Frankly, if you really break that down, it's just taking the data center and making it smaller and closer to the end application. Some of our biggest customers today are using it in an edge application. In fact, we have a utility company which has a lot of power coming into their grid via windmills and geothermal, and then they're also obviously providing the power to the customers. And they own a large region in the United States, and we're also seeing this in Europe now. And they're putting small little huts, which have micro data centers, out near the customers. And they have long haul fiber coming in. And this wall mount enclosure is a perfect way to splice in that long haul fiber coming into the hut. And then you splice it into short fibers that jump into the server rack, switch rack, and wherever else they need to go. So it's a great demarcation point for edge, large data centers, perfect for multi-tenant co-location. So it's not just one vertical. It's got a lot of flexibility, as we saw, so it fits a lot of different needs.
Great. So we have a few other questions as well. The second one is, when should I use an in-floor zone enclosure?
Right, so if you have already designed your system to have that raised floor, and I know a lot of people are kind of getting away from that, but there's still a lot of legacy out there. That's the sort of customers who really benefit from this, because instead of it using up your potentially constrained rack space, we offer an HD Fusion Splice rack mount, but if you don't have room for it, that's when you want to use it in the floor. Also, people, you're running cable in there in the floor. That's why you created a raised floor space. This is perfect for having a demarcation point and perfect for moves, adds, and changes. And again, anybody who needs to be able to get back in and want to make some of the moves, adds, changes, this is an ideal product for that because of that tilting cassette that you saw in the video.
We have also a question about the tilting patch panels. So why is the tilting patch panels in the in-floor zone enclosure an improvement over other similar types of products?
Right, if you noticed from the pictures, and we didn't show it in the video, most of the products out there today from all of our competitors, they're fixed. The panel is on an angle so you can get at it. But if you need to get to both sides, and a lot of times you're going to want to get to both sides of the cassette, you can't get to it. They offer only panels, not cassettes, and only one side can be gotten to. So when you fiber up the back side, now it's almost impossible to get to the other side. Where the tilt, you saw the handle, you can pull the cassette up, out of about 25% out of the in-floor enclosure, and then you can tilt it both ways. So you can access, it's lifted up so you have better access, and then it tilts both ways to get access. So really a big improvement over what you have today in in-floor, raised floor zone enclosures.
We have two more questions. When should I use AOCs, Bob, if you can answer this as well? Right,
so the AOCs, that's again the active optical cables. You have a lot of options. If you're going to go more than 5 meters, which means you cannot use a DAC, which is a direct attached copper cable, and if you're running at 25 or higher speeds, that means you can't use a UTP twisted pair copper patch cord as well. You're going to need to use either pluggable transceivers that come with the switch in the server, and there are normal fiber passive patch cords. Or if you would like to save some money and you're not worried about routing the pre-terminated fiber transceivers that are pre-terminated with the fiber, this is perfect for your application. A lot of the hyperscalers, they have high density, they're looking to get their costs down, they're using AOCs. Anybody can use it at all. So if you want to go more than 5 meters, or even if you want to go less, and you want to save money over the pluggable transceivers that you have to buy, this is a perfect application to do that. And again, it's a lot of the high density. If people are buying a lot of patch cords, a lot of pluggable transceivers are looking to reduce their costs, and that's why they go to AOC.
We have a question from one of our audience as well. He would like to know if possible to use HDFlex enclosure as outdoor enclosure. He's mentioning that he has a project in Riyadh and he's asking for anything similar or any other suggested solution for this.
So that was an outdoor enclosure?
Yes, or even inside manholes or wall mounted. So apparently they have a project and he's asking if any outdoor enclosure or closures are possible.
We do offer outside enclosures that you could mount patch panels in, because we have a whole line of industrial products that are either in the industrial plant, which is basically like an outdoor environment. There's a lot of chemicals and oil and things like that. But we don't offer that in the splicing system. So the enclosure that you'd have for an outdoor or rugged environment, you would purchase that separately, and then you'd have to mount the panels in it. It's not designed with all the flexibility and the features that we saw from the wall mounts. That is strictly a entrance room, which is still indoor. It's the first, when you bring in your cables from the outside, that's when you need the indoor high density fusion splicing. That is just not designed today for outdoor. But as I said, you can buy a separate enclosure and then put your own patch panels into it. And we can turn you on to one of our salespeople who can get you the part numbers for that outside enclosure.
Yes, because the request he mentioned was for splice closures. Definitely we'll get in touch with Brahim and try to help him out with his project. So my last question is, what type of transceivers will use the CS connectors?
Very good point. So it's still a new technology, and the transceivers that are coming out, Arista and Cisco, both offer a transceiver. It is a FR4 variety that works with the CS, and we'll see more and more of these coming out in the future. But today, even if you don't plug these into the transceiver, you can use them with cassette to cassette. So you can really improve your density by going to a CS and then running LCs or MPOs to your transceiver. So even if you don't have the transceiver today, or you want to use your legacy transceivers, you can still install a CS system in between the transceivers, and you can use a CS to a cassette and an LC on the other end of the patch cord to go to your existing SR4, BiDi transceivers, any of the existing ones today. And over the next year or so, I think you'll see a lot of new transceivers come out with the CS. And to make you feel comfortable, there's a consortium of several different customers, switches, servers, transceiver makers, more than just Panduit coming out with CS. So you'll see that start to pick up momentum over, like I said, this year and next.
Great. So I think we're done with the questions. Thank you very much again, Bob, for joining us today. If anyone from the audience would like to have any questions or need more information or any clarification, please feel free to contact us at support@itrident.com or email directly Robert at his email showing on the screen. It was a very informative session and a good training product for everyone. I hope all the audience who attended today benefited from this session. before they leave, we have a very small and short survey. We would really appreciate if you answer it. And again, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you again for your time. I appreciate it.